Hello, Robert Randall here again. I want to make a demo, a little explanation of this totally unique, very interesting, if I do say so myself, guitar I just made. I've been thinking about this kind of idea for a long time, or wanting to make this sort of thing for a long time. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this, just by looking at it, this guitar was inspired by the guitars made by Orville Gibson at the turn of the beginning of the 20th century, end of the 19th century. I don't know how many guitars he made, not many. He like under 20 probably. He made lots and lots of mandolins. That's how the Gibson company got its fame and its early notoriety was as a mandolin company. And he wanted to make sort of a guitar version of a mandolin. So he took the unique way he already carved out mandolins, often from one piece that made up the whole back and sides. He'd carve out like a bowl. And he applied that to making steel string guitars. Some of the earliest guitars that were expressly made for steel strings. Orville had a lot of innovations, or at least he made guitars very differently from the way people were making, sort of in the Martin style, or people making Spanish guitars in the Spanish style or the German style at that time. And he just went his own way, carved the tops. His instruments had almost no bracing. He had these ideas that bracing just interfered with, you know, the lifeblood of the instrument, which, you know, it's a pretty debatable thing. He had all kinds of crazy ideas. He's often much derided. He died a pauper and gave all of his stock in Gibson to a bartender at one point to settle a debt. Crazy character, but I've been fascinated by his guitars ever since I saw them in books, and I've seen a couple in museums in person here and there as time goes on, but they're so rare you never even get a chance to hear one. So few of them are in playing shape. But I've been, in the back of my mind, even when I first started wanting to play guitar and make guitars especially, I was like, I kind of want to know what that's about. And I kind of want to make one. And so this is my first attempt at an Orville Gibson style guitar. And it is so interesting what I've learned making one of these. Now, I did try to copy the proportions of I sort of composited together a few of his instruments. This body shape actually is still being made by Gibson, this shape that he came up with, and these vague proportions, about, more or less, in, I believe the L5 has this same shape. Maybe it's a Super 400, I can't remember. But anyway, Gibson still makes this shape all these years later, and for the 19th century, this is an incredibly wide guitar. This is 16 inches across the lower bout. Most guitars at this time are around 13 inches. Big, like a huge guitar was 14 inches, like a big Martin at that time is somewhere around 14 inches, maybe a little more. So this is just, and you'll notice it's also not a very deep guitar. It's probably about 3 inches all told, when it's hard to tell exactly because of the arching. So the whole business of it is different, just entirely different than the sound that comes out of it is not what you expect, especially if you're used to playing a flat, like a Martin style flat top. Here, I have a dreadnought right here, and we'll do a little bit of a sound comparison here. So I don't know what you heard, but I heard an entirely different bass response in this guitar. This is a much more compressed sound, which is par for the course for archtops, but it's got something different than a normal archtop guitar. Incredibly strong fundamental, not a lot of overtones, but they're there. Describing sound is a slippery slope to sounding like an idiot, but judge for yourself. I'm not making a value judgment, so I'm sure lots of people, obviously lots of people prefer the way a dreadnought sounds. Otherwise it wouldn't be such a popular instrument, such a useful instrument. I feel like there's a place for this kind of voice of instrument too. Especially if you're someone that plays with other people or with voices. I think this fits into a really nice, I don't know what you even say, sonic space. You know, it has a little Lego-like niche it can fit into in a mix. And it's such a unique playing experience. I went with a wide nut because that's sort of how they were from the examples I found. I have a few people that really helped me out with this. There's a man named Robert Corwin who has some really great websites about the early history of Gibson and early Gibson instruments, and also really great websites on Martin and a few other makers that are tip-top. You should look up Robert Corwin's websites. And he actually sent me x-rays of one of his Orville Gibson instruments, which was very helpful in trying to understand how thick to make the side pieces. Also, Carter Guitars in Nashville recently had one of these up for sale and had some really good pictures that I was able to blow up to scale to make the design for this. Now, I'll talk a little bit about the materials I used and how I made this thing and what's different about it. Someday I'd like to make a real accurate copy of one of these instruments, but I feel like I would have to actually hold one of the real ones in my hand, take some measurements, understand how the top is graduated and how thick it is. So out of an abundance of care and not wanting to spend too much money on this experiment, I sort of used the pieces I had lying around, and I voiced this guitar in a way that I thought would be when it comes to bracing at least, in a way that I thought it would be stable and stand the test of time, and hopefully not need a neck reset anytime too soon, because this neck joint it can come apart, certainly, but it's not going to be as straightforward as taking like a normal dovetailed neck out or any standard thing. You would have to remove this neck because of the way it's attached, the way you would remove like the neck of a Les Paul or that kind of set neck electric guitar, because it's just a tenon sort of. The neck is a tenon that glues in. So removable, but complicated. So what I ended up doing is it has a sort of V bracing here. I'll put pictures of what the bracing pattern in this guitar is like. And I actually, even after bracing it and getting together, I was unhappy with the stiffness right below the sound hole, so I added another brace right there. I didn't want this thing dipping or falling apart over time before I got a chance to even see what it was like. Now, as far as the materials go, Orville Gibson was known for using what we would call now reclaimed wood. He'd use, I think one of the stories is the steps from a church in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and old furniture and that kind of stuff. And so he'd use maple, walnut, mahogany, the typical 19th century furniture woods, and of course spruce for the tops like most guitars. Now, to get wood in the dimensions that would have been required for this guitar, it would have been a huge expense for me. So I used what I had around in my wood collection. The top is Doug fir, old growth quarter sawn Doug fir. The sides are a big thick piece of poplar. The back, which is the real stunner of this thing, is a piece of Purple Heart that I got from the Reclaimer that I didn't even know what it was for years. It was just black and rough, and then and it was in such huge dimensions that I was able to join it together and make something big enough for this guitar. And when I started servicing it, I was like, oh my gosh, look at this thing. It's a pretty stunning piece of wood. And the neck is some sort of light-colored, mahogany-ish kind of wood. That was, I think, part of some wainscoting or a drawer or some sort of thing, some reclaimed thing. You can see there's a bit of a theme. The bridge and the fingerboard are persimmon wood, which is a relative of ebony. I'm not big on using tropical hardwoods unless they were cut long ago and not for me. You know, I'll reclaim stuff, but I'm not ordering more tropical hardwood to be cut down. Anywho, that's, I just wanted to give a rundown of this thing. I'm so excited that it exists now in the world. This is an instrument that is for sale if you're so interested in such a thing. You're not going to find another one until I make some more of them, because I don't know anyone else that's making these. And you can drop me a line either at my website, rsrandall.com, or check out my reverb shop. I'm not sure if I'm going to put it up there yet. But take a look anyway, there's actually lots of good stuff there. And until later, see ya.